Hey everybody, this is Dark Guards and I'm back with another video. Now I've done some more work on the EMP blast. So once again I ended up working here early in the morning, pretty much from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. And I kept diving in and doing some more work on the EMPs. We actually got a huge amount done again. So now we have actual capabilities for a larger variety of things. So I was working on that system as I showed in the last video showing how the capabilities actually work. We now have implemented the capability for entity items, so we can wrap EMP attacks to the item sitting in the dropped item. We can now also, the creeper version now actually works. It's been registered and set up, so let me go ahead and show up where the code is for this. And I didn't set up anything ahead of time, so needless to say I have got lost in my own code again. So we've got the creeper one, which I showed off. I did figure out that there is a bit of a flaw with this. One, if I forget to do this effect only, it will set the ground on fire, and two, it does damage the creeper, so I am going to work on improving this. The way we're going to end up actually doing this is that inside the creeper there is actually a data manager that actually does manage the state. So there's an actual system when it does end up actually calling the on-strike lightning, which if we can find it down here. Right here. So when it calls down to strike lightning, it actually does data manager and sets power state. Unfortunately, you cannot access this from outside the class normally, so there is a bit of tweaking I have to do in order to be able to access it. When I do that, we'll end up replacing this with that and end up actually making it much more functional and easier to work with. It, however, unfortunately means that you can't capture that lightning event if we do switch over to that, so it does have its downsides. I may put a config in there to let you switch back and forth between them depending on what you want to do, if you want to make sure mods have that lightning event or if you just want to set the charge state. Of course, we got the entity item, as I mentioned. The reason for actually doing this is that without wrapping it, you actually would not be able to EMP dropped items. So somebody could literally throw their gun if somebody sets an EMP off, and they would not lose all the power in their weapon or armor or whatever piece they throw on the ground. This has been fixed. Of course, you can shut this off in the config, so that way if you don't want this to run, because it could be a little bit unnecessary performance-wise, it is actually set up so you can actually mess with that. I have actually went through and worked a lot on the EMP inventory, as I did the video last time showing off the EMP. I forgot to point out that I messed up and I accidentally put another EMP state on the call tree that wasn't actually there, so it would have crashed if it didn't actually run the normal behavior, which is surprising. I never ran into that, but it's been fixed. And on top of that being fixed, we now have nested inventory support. So if an EMP item is hit and that EMP item has its own inventory, so say you're running with a bag, backpack, backpack or something, it'll try to access that if it has the inventory support on it. If it doesn't have the inventory support, we really can't do anything. We can't force logic unless we want to go through and install every mod and then add compatibility per mod manually. But if it does have that support, it will actually go through in this section right here. It will figure out if it's an entity or tile entity. We have special handling for each, that way when the code is running on the EMP or tile entity, it will actually give it back the container, so that way if you have an item in your inventory that can be EMP'd and then it wants to blow up or electrocute or something, not only does it have the position data, it will actually also have the container to work with to actually set off and do damage to the container, blow the tile entity up, or so on and so on. But it will EMP their sub-inventories. It does this through its own little class handler, which basically just wraps back to this. So it will run the same exact code that we just ran on the item itself on the sub-items, and if those items have their own inventories, it'll do it again. So that's one of the reasons why there is actually a config to turn this off, is that you can actually disable this functionality if you feel that the performance impact is too high. So that's been implemented and fixed. On top of this, I completely gutted the old universal power system. So we need to copy the universal power system from Volts Engineering the update. And I was looking at that and I was staring through the code files and everything, and I realized that the system was overly complicated. Even in 1.7, I still look at that system as being overly complicated. So I completely deleted it, didn't look at it, and I rebuilt an entire new system. This is down in the lib folder down here. So we go energy and system. So we have an energy system, very simple. This just registers the systems. We can get the system per type. I have limited, so it only runs on tile entities and item stacks. This is just to kind of make the code cleaner. It, however, does work on anything, so the reality is I can add another type system here. It just has a little restriction. It is null point safe, so it runs pretty well. And it works similar to the old system, but now there's an interface and it simply goes, okay, can't support set energy, stuff like that. And this works relatively well. We have basic support for Forge Energy at the moment. We'll add customized support for RF at some point because there's some special handling I need to do just for thermal expansion to make it work 100%. And then we'll add special handling for some mods as we go. Specifically, IC2 is going to be on this list of being adding special handling, and probably Buildcraft. But the special handling we do have is that just simply we can set energy storage to 0. Energy storage by default has a max receive and extract, so if you try to actually call the extract and receive and you hit that limit on them, because there's actually a limit check on these, it will prevent you from extracting more energy, so the EMP code can't actually run effectively, so we have to actually add special handling to set this value to 0. I actually might make a forge pull request later to solve this problem altogether. But that's implemented there, so this does actually work. And now that I've explained all the code, which I know is probably boring for some of you, let's actually get into the demonstration itself. So let's go ahead and set time of day, and we'll show things up. So all these furnaces have been running. Now I've only been testing on actual additions. A few people have asked if I've done other mods. I will eventually get around to testing other mods, Mechanism, IC2, so on and so on. In theory, anything that supports forge energy will work without a problem, as long as it puts the code in the way it's expected. RF machines should work, as most of them support forge energy by default. IC2 probably is not going to work unless it supports forge energy, and the same thing with the Buildcraft stuff, unless it supports the forge energy. Anyways, let me get some creeper eggs out here too. So I'm going to show off the creeper, and I'm going to show off the draining of the power at the same time. Now I'm testing the furnaces, but this should in theory work on everything. If people test this on the next update and find out it doesn't, just feel free to tell me. Now once again, to confirm, these have power in them, and we're going to launch an EMP missile. And there it goes, it'll charge the creepers. Unfortunately, it sets them on fire. This is what I say the downside of using the lightning effect, is that it does set them on fire, which is really unfortunate. But it does drain all the power machines, and it does make these guys charged with a little bit more work, so it'll be pretty good. And the cool thing is, if you have your own mod and you want to implement support for this, it's not too hard. You can literally just implement a capability. For those who understand capabilities, basically the same class, and you just register it to your tile ID. And if you want to register, if you want to build support for another mod, it's actually not too difficult. The way we handle it for internal stuff is the entity item entity creeper. We do an attach event for entity. There is one for tile entity and item stack. So if you want to go and make EMP code for, say, IC2 stuff, you can use this system to make the EMP code for all their stuff. It's not that hard. This is how we're going to handle thermal expansion support, by the way, is that we're going to do an attach capability on all the thermal expansion machines and have them actually drain properly. So this will do pretty good, but yeah, this is the code you would end up using. And if you want to get access to the capability, what you'll do is make your own field that has this in it, and you'll put that anywhere in your own code, and it should inject the capability into your code so you can get access to that EMP thing. So you don't have to have direct access. You can do this all from the API and make sure that your code is a soft dependency instead of a hard dependency. Anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. I may make a couple more videos here. We're going to be probably doing the 7th day horde on 7 days, so if I get a video that's quality, I'll upload that. If not, well, it goes to the garbage bin like the rest.